Okay, so I have been hiking the Grand Canyon for almost 25 years. And for about 20 of those years, I've gotten group reservations at Phantom Ranch at the bottom of the Grand Canyon for a 2-night stay. We go in February when it's much cooler than it is here this afternoon. On my last trip, I had a group of 20, friends and some family. I had 2 sisters and 2 nieces scheduled to go with me. And when we had a last-minute cancellation, another niece decided that she would like to go. Now, Bonnie's idea of an ideal vacation is to sit somewhere on a beach. But she figured if the Grand Canyon was good enough for her mother and her sister, it was good enough for her. And when my other sister found out that Bonnie was coming on the trip, she called me and said, "We have to play the Bobcat Scat trick on Bonnie." Oh yes, the old Bobcat Scat trick. We should do that. Well, when they got out here, Bonnie was so excited to be here, and she was so interested in all the different plants and animals. And so I fed her with facts about everything I could think of. She came to see me as her Arizona guide, and she trusted me completely. When we were on a hike in the Phoenix Mountain Preserve to get ready for our Grand Canyon hike, she asked me, "Is there going to be any wildlife in the Grand Canyon?" I said, "Yes, there will be mule deer and ringtail cats and bobcat. Yes, there's bobcats in the Grand Canyon." Well, when we got up there, we had a nice night stay on the South Rim, and we had a hike down 10 miles to Phantom Ranch. It was a beautiful day. We got some rain and wind, but we're not going to let that dampen our enthusiasm. When we got down to the bottom, our group of 20 sat outside at the picnic tables before dinner to socialize and everybody get to know one another, laugh and tell stories about prior hikes. As we sat there under those cottonwood trees, listening to the wind blow and the water rushing through Bright Angel Creek, looking at the canyon walls towering above us, we were all so grateful to be there. We told stories about past trips. Remember the time we short-sheeted Jeff Hatfield's bed? That was funny. Or how about the time Brian told us about blowing up a barn in Kentucky? Those guys were nuts. Great stories that we have down there. And I looked around and I noticed that my niece Bonnie was not there. And I took the opportunity to tell everybody else in the group about the Bobcat Scat joke. I can't keep a straight face for anything, and I figured if everybody else was in on the joke, I'd be able to pull it off. That night after dinner, I was tired and I went to bed early. And I went to crawl into my bed, and it felt a little short. Somebody had short-sheeted my bed. Well, I fixed it and went to bed and made a note to myself, I'll find out tomorrow morning who did it. So the next morning at breakfast, I asked, "Who short-sheeted my bed?" Nobody at my table would admit to it. I went to the other table and I said, "Who short-sheeted my bed?" My friend Craig looked at me, puzzled, and said, "Your bed wasn't short-sheeted." And his girlfriend said, "Yes, it was." Aha! She claimed it wasn't her, but she may have seen who did it. But I had another trick to pull, and I didn't have time to really find out who the guilty party was. So I went back to the cabin, and I got a chocolate Cliff Bar. Does anybody know chocolate Cliff Bars or Cliff Bars in general? They're nice trail food. They kind of stick together. And the chocolate Cliff Bars are chocolate all the way through. They're dark brown with bits of nuts in them, and they're not dipped in chocolate, so they get your hands all icky. So I took the chocolate Cliff Bar out of the package and broke off a piece of it and started rolling it up. And I rolled it into a nice little tube, and then I tapered the end of it nice and pointy. I broke it into 3 nice little pieces and assembled it carefully into a pile. Bobcat Scat. I took it down the trail and I placed it on a rock underneath an overhanging cottonwood tree branch so I'd know right where it was. Went back into camp to gather the troops for our day hike to Ribbon Falls. We were going to hike 12 miles round trip to Ribbon Falls on our day off. As we set out on our hike, as luck would have it, Bonnie fell into line right behind me. We walked along the trail. When I came to that overhanging cottonwood tree branch and I saw the bobcat scat on the rock, I stopped and said, "Hey, that looks like bobcat scat." And my friend Daryl stepped forward wearing a camouflage hat and hiking pants with cargo pockets, looking like the real outdoorsman. And he stepped forward and he looked at it and he said, "That is bobcat scat." So I picked up a couple of leaves so I wouldn't have to actually touch the bobcat scat, and I picked it up. And I started telling the group how bobcat scat is supposed to be edible in a survival situation. If you're in trouble and you're lost and you can find some bobcat scat, you can actually eat it. So I picked it up and I sniffed it. And then I took a bite. Bonnie was horrified. "Don't do that!" And then Daryl stepped forward and said, "Can I try it?" And so I gave it to Daryl and he took a bite. And then we started offering it to everybody. And some people turned it down. No way, they weren't going to eat it. And other people took a little bite and we agreed that it wasn't that bad. Now, I'm never one to leave any litter on the trail, including fragments of a Cliff Bar, so I made sure that we ate that whole pile of bobcat scat. And my niece didn't even notice. She was so horrified. We started walking down the trail and Bonnie said to me, "I can't believe you would do that." And I said, "What if it was a chocolate Cliff Bar?" And she said, "It was not a chocolate Cliff Bar." I thought it wasn't? Well, I turned around again and I said, "Bonnie, it was a chocolate Cliff Bar." She said, "That was not a chocolate Cliff Bar. I can't believe you would eat that. That is so disgusting. Don't you know you could get sick?" And I was trying to come clean and she wouldn't let me. So I had no choice but to play the joke up all day long. When we stopped to eat some trail mix, we did so because we couldn't find any bobcat scat to eat. When we found some spearmint growing in the stream, we all ate it to get that nasty taste out of our mouth. We agreed that that night at happy hour at the picnic tables, I would reveal the joke to Bonnie once and for all. When we got back to the picnic tables, I took out the chocolate Cliff Bar and I said in front of the whole group, "I want to show you now how you can make bobcat scat out of a chocolate Cliff Bar." And I took it out and I rolled it up and I made some bobcat scat and I set it on the picnic table in front of Bonnie. And she looked at me and said, "That was not a chocolate Cliff Bar." I said, "Bonnie, it was too. Do you really think I would eat poop?" And she said, "Well, how did you know it was a chocolate Cliff Bar?" "Because I walked down the trail and put it there?" And she said, "But everybody else ate it. What about them?" And I said, "They were all in on the joke." She spun around and looked at everybody and said, "They were all in on it?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "But Aunt Sally, why would you do that to me?" And I thought, because it's your family and that's what we do? But before I could say anything, a wide grin spread across her face and she got a twinkle in her eye and she looked at the rest of the group. She said, "Well, that's okay. I short-sheeted your bed." And I thought, yes, because we're family and that's what we do. I'm looking forward to my next trip into the Grand Canyon with my nieces and my sisters. And I'm wondering, maybe I should start planning my next trick now.